The stage is set now for an assault, at least we hope anyway, on the American record in the men's 5,000 meters that belongs to Marty LaQuarrie. You see it there, 13:15:06. A field of, well, I was going to say 25. Why don't we just say a quarter of 100? 25 runners in this event. And you see the names there, and a couple of them to watch in particular. Doug Padilla, formerly of BYU, 13:20:55. Max Centrowitz, and a name that's familiar to all by now, Alberto Salazar, certainly going to be one of the strong challengers and perhaps the pre-race favorite here. Ralph King, Steve Placentia, Tom Hunt, Paul Cummings, Don Clary, and Dan Dillon. As we continue in this huge field here, Steve Lacey, Gerald Jones, Dave Murphy, Randy Melcon, Larry Kuzort.
Well, let me say this about the field. There's even further additional runners. Ed Spinney, John Floor, formerly of Northeastern, Paul Williams from Canada, Greg Laudenslager, who's running unattached here, John Zischka from Oregon Track Club, formerly of Penn State, Mike Lehman from Club Northwest. Everybody under 13 minutes and 50 seconds. I can remember Sports Illustrated writing up the great Jim Beatty, the first indoor 4-minute miler, who ran under 14 minutes, and you thought that that was the second coming of getting into heaven for nothing. But and here we have all of this talent. This is the finest 5,000-meter field ever assembled in the United States.
The meet record belongs to Matt Centrowitz, 13:27:06. He set that last year here. He has won, in fact, this event 3 times in the Prefontaine Classic, 1977, 79, and 81. So Centrowitz, formerly of Oregon, right at home here.
Well, he is a great runner, and I guess if I had to pick 3 or 4 people for all of our viewers to keep an eye on, it would be Matt Centrowitz, Doug Padilla from Athletics West, we will point out, Alberto Salazar, and possibly Paul Cummings. Then the field gets interesting. Then you get cases where people, and those times you saw on the right-hand side of the screen were the all-time best they have run. We'll try and give you splits here of what the mile time breaks down to. These runners, in essence, will be trying to run each mile, if they were the lead pack, under 4 minutes or around 4 minutes and 15 or 16 seconds, and then running another one at that pace, Pete, and then running a third one at that pace, and then having a sprint left at the finish.
That's why they're doing it and not me.
Well, the training they put themselves through is amazing. The dedication, it is not a hobby. It almost becomes a way of life for all these runners. And, you know, when you smell the pizza and you know you're close enough to get that bite to be #1 in the world, it is a driving force among distance runners particularly. The dedication that these men on the track put in is enormous. I'm talking about 2 workouts a day. I'm talking about building your life around it. And while it's not the way of life for many people, you can admire the dedication it takes to be amongst the very best in the world and the drive it takes to get there.
We have a start. It almost looks like the crowd leaving here, but we know better than that. 25 runners starting out 5,000 meters. 12.5 laps.
Doug Padilla moves right out there into the lead just to get out of the traffic, I thought, as much as anything. He likes to lead. An enormous talent that we'll talk about. Alberto Salazar, I would expect to take the lead and force the issue here. There's Salazar slowly moving up on the outside. Now we have exactly 12 laps to go. And there again, Salazar taking the lead. That's about the only thing he knows is to simply try and control a race. He knows he lacks the speed of most of the other runners here, and he has got to put distance between himself and virtually everybody else in that race if he is to have a chance to break the American record. He has recovered from the Boston Marathon, which he ran on April 19th. It takes a runner who's going all out frequently something on the order of maybe 4 weeks to recover fully from a marathon. His body temperature, Salazar in the lead I'm referring to now, dropped to 88 degrees after the Boston Marathon from dehydration. He had an interesting phenomenon occur, that young man. 4 years ago in a race, he pushed himself so hard his temperature went up to 108. I've never heard of another human being like Alberto Salazar suffering a 20-degree change in body temperature and living to tell about it. It must reflect his physical condition.
He is very much recuperated here as he, in the early stages, goes to the front, and that's where we figure to see him most of the race if he is to win it.
Pete, the doctor in Boston came out of intravenous feedings to meet with the press and said, you know, if it was you or I, we'd be dead. But again, that was how hard Salazar pushes. His intense drive to win is something that has people almost in awe. He has lacks the ability to probably run under 52 seconds per quarter, which for world-class 5,000-meter runners is very slow. And he makes it up by his intensity.
Well, he leads a long train of athletes right now. It is Salazar, Clary, and Centrowitz at this juncture. We're going to take a break here in the 5,000 meters and go to Larry Sternholm down in the infield.
It's cold down here, but you mentioned the Boston Marathon. And just a week or so ago, Don Clary and Alberto ran an 8:24, and Salazar claimed they were just cruising, and that the Boston Marathon obviously didn't take that much out of him, and he's ready to go.
With 10 laps to go. Thank you, Larry. We watch the runners as they engulf the first turn here.
What they're thinking about right now, Pete, that goes through these runners' minds is they're checking around. They're monitoring themselves. They're not concerned with who's in the lead or whether I'm running 8th or 10th or something. If you have a chance at victory, you probably want to be in the top 5 near Alberto, Salazar, Padilla, the rest. But they're saying, how do I feel? I'm now coming up to 3/4 of a mile. Do I feel comfortable? Is this pace too fast for me? And they're asking themselves a whole series of questions. It's too early, again, to do anything but except try and relax, feel comfortable, and keep a good mental outlook. The 3/4 mile time, 3 minutes, 11 7/10 of a second. They are right on the 4:15 mile pace that I mentioned.
It is Clary, it is Salazar.
Paul Cummings in 3rd from the New Balance Track Club, and on his shoulder, another Athletics West runner, Ralph King, and Doug Padilla now in 5th place. Those, in my opinion, will be the top 5 that will contend with Centrowitz in 6th place, simply dogging everybody's footsteps there.
All right, we'll take note of that and see if it pans out.
Salazar is 23 years of age, all of 5 feet 11 1/4 inches. The man in the lead, 141 pounds. He is not ranked in the world at this distance in 1981, and yet he was ranked 6th in the world at 10,000 meters, showing you that the further that he runs, the better he is. And that lack of speed starts to hurt him less and less. He had the American record indoors for 5,000 meters, but was not successful in coming within 8 seconds of that outdoors last year. This is his attempt. He's improved at 10,000 meters to come down. There's your mile split. 4 minutes, 15 7/10 of a second, and they have over 2 miles still to go. They are right on American record pace with 2 to go. Clary in 2nd. Paul Cummings, an outstanding miler, moving up in distance. Someone who, again, Salazar has to fear because of his speed in 3rd. In 4th, it's Padilla, the big man on your screen wearing the dark shorts, running in 6th, Matt Centrowitz, a person to be reckoned with by everybody in the race. He's a 2-time Olympian. Right there at the right of your screen, a 2-time Olympian. Matt Centrowitz went to school here, was a 4:08 high school miler back in New York, has great finishing speed. He can blast the last half mile, and maybe only Padilla or possibly Cummings has a chance to stay with him.
And you can look there, as you speak of Centrowitz, you can just about, as you say, Larry, just about figure that those fellows in your picture there are the ones that are going to be in the picture when it comes down to the end of this event.
Meet director Pat Holleran, who's done an outstanding job putting this whole thing together, asked Alberto earlier this week, do you want a pacer, Alberto, for the first mile? He said, no, I want to do it myself. Clary in 2nd, Cummings still in 3rd, Ralph King in 4th, Centrowitz in 5th, and Padilla looking to fading seemingly just a little bit here. A gulf beginning to open in 6th.
Well, you mentioned earlier that Padilla likes to be up near the front and perhaps a little bit uncharacteristically trailing now by as much as 20 meters.
Now